Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. We have a liftoff. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Good evening. Welcome to Planet Comicon TV. My name is John Kreisbergs, and it must be Wednesday because we're going to be talking comics. And we've got William Binderup with us from Elite Comics and Christopher Jackson from Planet Comicon Kansas City.
Greetings, all.
Guys, it's been a fun week, right?
The store's back open. It's a good week.
That is a great week, man. That's awesome to hear. Anything in terms of like new, fresh news that you need to pass on to anybody or what to expect as they're coming in the store?
We don't have new books yet. New books start next Wednesday.
Awesome.
But you can come in the store. It's not like we don't have literally a million other things to buy. So you can still shop. You have to wear a mask. You have to use hand sanitizer, but you can come back in.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And so that means, Chris, looks like we're going to have to do something a little bit different next week, right? With because we're going to have to start talking comics on a different day.
I think since Wednesday is new book day and William wants to be focusing on that, I think we're going to move to Tuesdays.
All right.
And change our format a little bit. So we'll have 50 minutes of chatting with guests, or William and I chatting. And then William's going to have a 10-minute discussion of new comics and what's going on at Elite.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Fair enough, William? You want to do that?
Awesome.
Okay, that sounds good.
So,
especially since the shipping schedule is so up in the air, no one will know what's coming out until we tell them.
And in case you don't know where Elite Comics is and you've been under a rock, this is the information you need to know. We're their website, phone number, William's dating profile. Everything's there. No, definitely get there on Facebook and start supporting your local comic retailers wherever you are. So let's stop with this stuff. Let's bring in the big guns, guys, because we got a special guest this week, right?
Very special.
We are really excited to welcome Ande Parks to the broadcast tonight. Ande is a local creator who has been a supporter of Planet Comicon Kansas City and a supporter of the comic community in this area for decades now. We appreciate that, Ande.
Cheers. How you guys doing?
We're doing well, and Ande known for his quality cocktails and his hats. So,
and one of the very few people in comics with one name, just Ande.
It will do. If you got the E on there, that will do most of the time.
Yeah.
You're like Cher or Bono.
Thank you for joining us tonight, Ande, and taking
My
the time out of your busy schedule. I know you wanted to travel and kidding.
Oh, yeah. I was supposed to be at a beach in Daytona, but I canceled that just to be with you guys.
Yeah,
exactly. We appreciate that.
You were going to take JetBlue to Daytona so you could die in Florida.
Good times, guys. Good times. So, Ande, a little bit of excitement in your world. It's really interesting. We've been talking about, PCKC TV kind of coming up during a time when we had the opportunity to invest in a little bit more of a live streaming effort. But you've had something really interesting here. I think we can basically call it one of the first blockbuster, streaming video releases ever, right?
Yeah, I guess the damn thing was a hit. So yeah.
So I pulled up an article here from Deadline. This May 2nd, so it's a little old. But Extraction is well on its way to becoming the biggest ever film premiere on Netflix, with a projected 90 million households getting in on the action in the first 4 weeks, which is we
Isn't
are
that
just getting
crazy?
close to that. That's insane.
Incredible.
Yeah,
I
I told my
guess
wife.
Yeah. Go ahead, Andy.
We read that. We were sitting around in the living room, and I pulled that up on my iPad, and I said, "So, I remember 12 years ago sitting in a little meeting room in Hollywood with the Russo brothers, who at that time were TV directors, trying to break into action films, and coming up with certain ideas that have found their way through the process and onto the screen. And now 100 million people or more are being exposed to those ideas. It's crazy."
I mean, I think it's there's something to be said. People are obviously looking for entertainment, but I mean, if you haven't seen the movie, and by the way, you need to go see the movie because you don't have to go very far. It's the best seats in the house. There are some amazing action sequences. There's amazing things about that story. It's awesome that I it's obviously autobiographical because they got Chris Hemsworth to play you, which is amazing.
And I heard you get 25 cents per person that watches it, right?
God, if only.
Talk a little bit, Andy, kind of how did that all come about? Because this, obviously, you had a major hand in this. There it is, Chris.
Let's put that up there. We haven't actually said Andy is the writer of Ciudad, which is the graphic novel on which the movie Extraction is based. So
True.
And I think Andy can give us a little history of that.
So I'll try to give you the Ted Baxter 5,000 watt radio station version. I'll try to make it succinct, but it did all start because after I'd been inking comics for like a decade, I decided that I wanted to also pursue writing a bit. Partially because I wanted to stretch myself creatively, and partially because I wanted things out in the world that I had some ownership in. It's a swell gig inking Green Arrow, but if Green Arrow does well, that helps DC Comics. That's the way things are built. Mm-hmm. So I started writing, and I wrote a couple graphic novels for Oni Press, which were both kind of local to our part of the world, historical fiction, one about the Union Station Massacre, and one about Truman Capote's time in Kansas. And after that second one, the Russo brothers, who were, like I said, directing TV shows at the time and had done a couple features, but hadn't really made a big action flick yet, reached out to either the Hollywood division of Oni Press or Oni Press itself and said, "Hey, we'd like to develop a project. We have an idea for this project. We'd like to team up with you guys and develop it as a graphic novel and a movie at the same time." So Eric Gitter and Joe Nosemack reached out to me because I was Oni's kind of researchy crime guy. And so I signed on to participate in this thing. And the Russos and I started getting on the phone and talking about what the story would be, how it would all work out. At some point, it got optioned by Paramount. So I flew out to Hollywood to sit down with the Russos and just kind of figure out the big structure of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And then the idea was we'd pound out an outline together that we all were invested in. And then I'd go one way and write a graphic novel, and they'd go the other way and write a screenplay. So develop together and then kind of split apart to make two different pieces.
So I think that's an interesting thing because we do have, some folks who have actually who've read the book, who've read and then have now seen the movie, and there are some differences in there. Chris, we were talking about that a little bit too, just in terms of the characters and some of the storyline. So that's kind of naturally how some of those sort of splits kind of arose.
Yeah. So keep in mind, like I said, that was about 12 years ago that I went out there to bash all this stuff out with them. And then it took me a year or so to write the book. The graphic novel was published about 6 years ago. We had some false start with artists and whatnot. And so in that time, a couple things happened. The Russos went from guys who were trying to break into action flicks slowly to the guys who made the biggest movie in the world, right? In Avengers Endgame. And they were slowly developing this project, and it just morphed over time in a way that my book, which was frozen in time because I'd written it already, didn't evolve. So yeah, choices were made. Like in the book, the kidnapped victim is a young lady, and they changed that to a young man for the film. I don't know. everything you hear is a guess because I was involved in the production of the film. My guess is they just thought, you know what, let's avoid anybody looking at this thing and thinking that there's anything problematic about that relationship. Let's just make it a young man. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing problematic in their relationship in the book, in my opinion. They just form a human bond, but probably a safer bet to make that character a man and just avoid that stuff.
Yeah, there's always the Hollywood effect. I think things kind of change and morph and stuff like that. You can always see it from, whether it's a classic storyline, from comics that kind of, changes and morphs. So right. I think there's has to be a little bit of a flexibility in that. Now it's as you've seen this sort of thing kind of happen. I mean, is it one of those strange things when people kind of, people talk to you and say, man, what's it like? I mean, what's it like to have something like that? Because a 12-year process is not a short-term investment in terms of your emotions and your work.
It was, the whole process would get intense at times. And I'd already learned to be a little jaded about Hollywood because my first project, Union Station, had been close to getting made several times. Mm. And so over those 12 years, I'd hear, it's close. This guy's taking a meeting. This guy's taking a meeting. This is you just keep hearing things that get your hopes up a little, and then it would always fall apart. And I kept going through these stages of, well, it'll never go into production. Bam, I'm checking Twitter one morning. My producer already told me it's a done deal, and I didn't believe him. I was like, what? Heard it before. And I'm checking Twitter in my kitchen one morning, and there's a picture of Chris Hemsworth on the set. I go, oh, I guess it's in production.
It's a thing.
Chris is on the set. So I went from never going to get made to, I won't ever get paid like I'm supposed to. Of course I did. They had to pay me once they started shooting. Oh, my credit will never be of course the credit is what it, nobody's going to like it. Everybody likes it. So you can live with all these anxieties, and the world kept kind of kicking them down. And I discovered that as of about 2 weeks ago, I was sleeping better.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I like your positive approach there, Andy. I like it.
Yeah, that's me. I'm not the guy who always assumes everything is going to be swell.
I won't get credit. I won't get paid.
I just think it's interesting that it took that 12 years because so many people, the world is so like right now about everything. Like if someone creates something and it isn't an immediate hit and immediately makes some money, they abandon it and want to move on to the next thing because they have in their mind, if it's going to be made and it's going to be good, it's going to happen right now.
Right.
If you had to stick with this thing for over a decade before you got your payoff.
Yeah, right. And it's a credit to the filmmakers, I think, that movie doesn't show any rust. It feels very modern and edgy, and that's part of why it evolved through all that time. They were trying to keep it current. And the two big changes in the story are male to female to male and the setting. Mm-hmm. Our book is set in a real life place in South America. And that's why it's called Ciudad. The place is called Ciudad del Este. It's a lawless little triangle there between three countries. And that was the core of the Russo's pitch, was this part of the world. And then there were complicated reasons. At one point, the company that had it in Hollywood wanted to make a different South American project. And then they didn't want to give us ours back unless we moved ours. So that was part of it. I think also aesthetically, the Russos thought, you know what, in this intervening time, we've seen a lot of South American drug lord kind of stuff. It might be a lot more interesting. And I think they're right. It is more interesting to see that happen in a part of the world that we're all not as familiar with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, let's, I love this. We're already getting some comments in here. Fantastic film, but as always, the book is better.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, good stuff. I want to go, I want to get a little bit more into your origin story, Andy, next. But first, as we do every week, we've been trying to recognize some of the exhibitors, retailers, artists, creators, crafters, friends, and really family that we're missing, so far this year. We try to do a little bit of a shout out for them. So this first shout out that we have are just some of the artists that we bring in regularly to Planet Comicon Kansas City. Some great work. We try to represent the work visually. You got to check out some of these websites. I mean, if not just for, that that poster of the child alone, Dominic Glover's work is amazing. Stephen Russell Black with some amazing, fantastic art. And a fantasy sort of approach to his work. And then Tyler
Can I interject for just, I know it's rude to jump in
Please,
here.
no, jump in, Andy. You know,
Tyler
because these are your
Walpole.
friends, right?
Yeah, Tyler is a buddy of mine. And if you seek out his pages, his Twitter, his Facebook, I assume it's on his website. He did a really cool piece of Chris Hemsworth in Extraction that he posted the other day.
Oh,
Excellent.
I might have to go find that while we're getting ready for Chris is gonna grill you now, because he's got con stories. It's about con stories now, right?
We'll start with Tyler. Tyler lives in Des Moines, where I was born and raised. So I already had a connection with Tyler.
Yeah.
And he's been coming to the show forever.
Mm-hmm.
And we really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And with Andy, Andy's been to every Planet Comic-Con except 2. And those 2, I'm really unhappy with you, Andy, for missing them, because we need somebody with a perfect record. It's been a few years now, but he missed on the weekend. I think your son was born on the Saturday of Planet,
Saturday about noon. Yeah.
Saturday about noon. And what, about 18, 19 years ago?
He is 17 now.
Aha. I was off by a year.
Just turned.
And then Andy had a sabbatical where he taught in the UK a couple summers ago, 3 summers ago.
Yep.
And he had just gotten
about 4
back.
years ago. Yep.
And he was apparently too tired from months of travel and a time change to show up at Planet. We'll forgive you, Andy. We appreciate your support the other years.
And I did go up to say hi even that year, even though
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. So, but he's been a staple. In fact, Andy, am I correct? I believe you created one of the early logos for Planet.
I created the very first logo. Yeah.
And I believe this might be that part of that logo.
Look at that. Yeah, yeah.
And this is, Andy did the flyers for some of the early shows.
It's true.
And this is one of the flyers for the 2001 show, which I got signed by many of the
really
people
cool
at the
with
show.
all the autographs.
So, yeah.
That was an important show for me because Miss Julie Newmar flirted with me a bit. That was a high point in my life. So
there was a story. Julie was very funny. She was a very interesting woman. I took her out to dinner the night before the show. We went up to Carrabba's, which is still up there on Metcalf, and she's very friendly, but she's a little out there, as I think everyone knows. And then my cousin picked her up to take her to the airport on Sunday, and went to pick her up in her room, and she had written in lipstick all over the mirrors in the room.
Oh,
I don't know, but he thought it was very odd.
Yeah.
He goes into the room to help her with her bags, and he said lipstick writing all over the mirrors.
Interesting.
So that's just a pretty funny story about Julie. So you can see the type of woman who's flirting with you there. She had a little bit of a wild streak in her. So
she had just written the word murder across the mirrors.
My cousin may not have wanted to tell me that. That's true.
So it wasn't just one word over and over again, the name Andy.
I should have told the story that way. That would have been
there
better.
we go.
Yeah, look at that. That's pretty awesome, man.
Killer.
Picture.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Tyler, though. That's pretty awesome. I mean, again, it's characters out of your brain kind of taking shape, and it's just got to be a weird feeling. So
I mean, I do see that does look a little bit like you.
Yeah,
I mean, if you had that hair,
just a wig and some big shades, I'm good.
So, Andy, talk to me a little bit how your background. I mean, you're pretty much a Kansas City kid there. Kind of kicking around the area, and you've. How did you get into all of this?
I went to Shawnee Mission West. Went to school with William, and grew up in Overland Park. I've lived here my whole life except for 5 years. My wife and I lived in Philadelphia while she got her PhD, and I ended up in comics because I was going to KU and neglecting to do one of the fundamental things that they tend to require at colleges, which is go to class. I wasn't very good at that part of it. And after a couple years of that, I thought, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't want to do anything associated with what my classes are. Even though I was doing art and English, I didn't want to teach. I didn't know what else I was going to do with those degrees. Mm-hmm. And I was wasting everybody's time, I thought. And I said, I think I'm going to quit this and what sounds fun to me is comics. So I got a job at Pizza Hut delivering pizzas, and I just started making comics at home, and I focused on being an inker because at that kind of late date to decide this career, I thought that might be my quickest path into the business. And just started doing it. And then, so I got good enough to get some minor professional work in those few years. And then when we moved to Philly, I met guys like Mike Manley and other guys, and I was able to work in a casual studio situation around other guys who are producing work every day. And that really helps me kind of go to the next level, learn that you can't be too precious about the stuff. You got to get it done. What I always tell young artists, I've said this, Chris, I don't know how many times at your show when people show me their work and it's unfinished, it's tentative, they're defensive because they only have like a page and a half done. And what's happening is that they're viewing the work as so precious that they can't ever finish it. And I preach this all the time. Finish that one and make the next one better. That's the only way you can move through and become a working artist. And it's really hard to do, but it's a hard barrier to push through, because if you care about something, by definition, you have a sense of taste about it. And so there's a period where you decide, I want to do this thing, and your taste outstrips your talent. And that's a hard wall to push through, but it's the only way to really get, reach the goal, which is doing this every day.
What were some of those early books and the first things that you start to get traction in your career with? What were some of the work that you were doing at that time?
I inked several books for Malibu for $10 a page. That was semi-pro years. Then I went to Philly, and the first time I went up to the DC offices, I was able to take the train there and meet with Mike Carlin, an editor there, and that led to a Superman fill-in issue. That was my first work at DC. And since then, I had long runs on Wonder Woman, Catwoman, various other things. And my career was okay. I stayed pretty employed. And then my buddy Phil Hester, we'd been doing a lot of work together, but nobody would hire us at Marvel or DC to work together. We were viewed as kind of fringe guys who needed other talents to kind of bring us back into the mainstream. They wouldn't let us do anything together. And then Kevin Smith and our editor, Bob Schreck, decided that we were the guys to draw their Green Arrow revival. And that kind of changed everything. They had the power to put us on that book. And that changed the way we were viewed. It made us viewed as guys who could do a regular superhero comic. And since then, we've kind of been seen that way and largely seen as a team as well. And we've done tons of stuff together since.
What was it that you learned during that period of time, that first book? I mean, I have to think that when you inherit the mantle like that and you get to kind of take care of a set of characters in a universe like that it can maybe be a little daunting.
It is. And especially when you're launching a book with Kevin Smith, who at the time had only done one other comic, and he was kind of a big Hollywood guy. He'd done Daredevil, and then Green Arrow was his next thing. And I think Phil and I, maybe we're a little tentative because we just found it hard to believe that we were being entrusted with a major gig like this. Fortunately, Kevin and Bob, our editor, were so supportive that we never had any pressure to change what we were doing. And so over the first couple issues, I think we settled in and thought, it's okay. We can be us. This is what people want, and it's going to be okay. But it's kind of a hard adjustment. You get used to the idea that you're kind of fringe guy. Phil calls us tweeners. We weren't really truly indie. We weren't really mainstream. And we had to get a little comfortable with the fact that we could draw a regular superhero book and people would dig it.
Yeah, at some point you have to kind of drive it like you stole it.
Yeah, right.
A little bit of Green Arrow here.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
What do you got here? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Andy and Phil were kind enough to sign this and draw a little Green Arrow sketch for me in the front of it a few years ago.
That's nice.
So
only for you, Chris. We've never done that on any other.
I can't imagine you've done it for anybody else. I feel very special, Andy.
Where?
It says you marked it 1 of 1.
Yeah.
I like this, Melissa Wheeler. Kevin Smith is awesome. So somebody
That's
who's
true. He's a good man.
Yeah.
Kevin has been influential for another local creator as well, Sav Rogers, a filmmaker who graduated from KU a couple years ago, has now made the film Chasing Amy. And
Oh God,
Kevin
I didn't
Smith
know
got
about
very
that.
involved
I'll
with
have
it.
to-
Yeah.
Cool.
Through that film, he met Kevin. I don't know exactly how that worked, but someday we'll have Sav Rogers on, let him explain it. So,
Yeah, there's some really amazing local creators. I mean, when you look at the Kansas City community of creators and people who are working on major books, but also doing some amazing indie stuff too. I don't think we get enough. They don't think they get enough love. I mean, just my opinion.
I just wanted to bring up another creator locally who had been helped by Kevin. So,
yeah. So
you were saying how you can't fall in love with not get the work done because you're so in love with the page. I saw an interview with Eric Larson years ago, and he said, "What's the main thing you need to teach someone to do a comic?" And his only answer was 22 pages a month.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what it requires. It can be various levels of great, but if you can't do 22 pages a month, you're not a comic artist in his world. You go be a fine artist, but
Right.
So how did Jack Kirby do 100 pages a month?
Yeah. There's only one him.
So yeah, it's when you look at where your career has been and where it is now. What's next, Andy? What are you working on these days? I mean,
It's funny. After the film came out, editors seem to be taking me a little more seriously as a writer all this time.
Funny how that works.
I kept telling him, I got this thing's going to come out. Yeah. So I've been writing a lot of pitches this last couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Some things that got revived, some things that are new, trying to, capitalize on this momentary success. So mainly I want to do more writing. 30 years at the drafting table kind of takes a toll on one's body. My spine is kind of worn to the nub. So I am still inking a book for Dark Horse. It's moving a little slowly. People have slowed down on deadline pressure in this modern era of ours. Mm-hmm. So inking a little bit, doing paintings when I can, and trying to get a lot of writing stuff off the ground.
Awesome. Maybe we could talk a little bit about this.
Oh, by the way, can I plug something while you ask me what I'm doing now? Geez,
absolutely.
I'm not much of a.
We're practiced for you, man.
Huckster,
because when you get the sequel and you get the sequel to the sequel,
give him a full screen to plug his product.
So I just want to mention that I have a Patreon now that I launched. I had like a month before the movie came out where I had hardly any work, and I thought, well, I should get a Patreon rolling in this time. And the most exciting thing for me on the Patreon is that I'm doing an on-the-fly novel set in Kansas City in 1939 thing. And I don't have an outline for it. I had an incident at the beginning that I've now concluded. The first chapter is done and up on my Patreon. And my goal is to go there every day and post 300 words or so and just keep plugging away at it. So that's kind of an exciting creative challenge that I don't know where it's going really. And it only costs $5 a month to subscribe to my Patreon, which you can find using my name. Look at that.
Hey, ha.
Wow.
Just as long as you get my weird name right with the ANDE, you can find me on all these various platforms.
I see the sunglasses. I see the hat. I see the brand is all there.
Yeah.
But this is really cool. That's an interesting way. I mean, in terms of kind of like incentivizing yourself to be, to show up every day, so to speak,
Right.
What an interesting way to go after it, man.
And it's another, like I said, finish that and make the next thing better. Mm-hmm. I'm posting 300 words almost every day. I miss one every now and then with a deadline or something, but it doesn't feel like a lot. It takes maybe an hour and a half in the morning to get that much work done. And then you go back and look at all I posted in the last month and go, damn, I got I got a chunk of a novel here. I'm going.
That's awesome, man. I think it's, it's part of the new model. It's part of, how artists are working and, reaching out to their audience at the same time, which I think to me is fascinating. It almost becomes a sort of conversation because those barriers of like, all right, I've been stuck in my head for a little while and now everybody's going to be out there and see it. And now I'm going to go back into my little cave and do it. It's more conversational than ever before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's do a quick. Let's take a quick pause here. We're going to do another shout out here to some friends from Planet Comic-Con. We're going to take a look at a couple of our retailers here. Some folks that
these guys.
These guys, right?
retailers.
Wow, you found some that have been supporting Planet for a long time here. That's great.
Yeah, tell me who we got here, Chris. I mean, we got some fun.
JCDs and Hobbies. They're out of Des Moines. They have a shop or two up there, and have been very supportive for a long time. Toys Bot and Toy Matrix have both had large displays at Planet for, many years now, and we really appreciate their support. You can find a wide variety of collectible toys there. So
yeah, it looks like all the Funkos you could ever need.
Yeah. Oh, and JCDs and Hobbies has everything. It goes way beyond toys and CDs.
Yeah,
they have comics and graphic novels, and it's a huge store up in Des Moines. Very good store. I've been there several times.
Yeah, the picture doesn't do it justice for sure.
No, it doesn't.
Been around so long, CD is in the name.
Right.
Yeah, I guess they have CDs. I don't even remember seeing them, but I'm sure they have them there.
Yeah,
At least when they open.
Yeah.
I recently had to shut down my 8-track store. I was really disappointed, but I was losing a lot of business as of late. I think happens. It just happens.
Well, it was I think it was you running on MySpace might have been your real problem.
Yeah, that could have been it. You know me. I got to have an account everywhere.
So, Andy, have they contacted you about the Hemsworth Extraction Funko Pop yet?
No.
That's when you will have crested the mountain. You're on the other side.
Do they have a series of Ryder Funko Pops yet? Darn it. Come on. They need that.
There should be. There should be.
Yes, because nothing says actually like a bunch of figures up on the wall like, hey, look at that white guy. Hey, look at that plain white guy. Hey, there's an old white guy.
So, Andy, you talked a little bit about, that you talk to a lot of young artists, and that either, they seek you out. I'm sure interactions at, at Planet Comic-Con and other places. What are some of the things that you find yourself repeating to those folks on a regular basis? You talked a little bit about, in that last segment, but is there other things that, other pointers, other tips?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I say to people, and by the way, I always try to make time for those people and to be patient and as supportive as I can be, because people did that for me. At the old club show in Kansas City, I was able to meet amazing guys, from Joe Kubert to Fred Rhodes, all these amazing guys who were Jerry Robinson even, very kind in looking at my work and being patient with me when I didn't know what the heck I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So what I tell people most is they lay down some stuff in front of me and I say, so what do you want to do? And they say, I want to make comics. And inevitably, about half the time I look down and there's no comics storytelling in the portfolio. They got some pinups. They got, a sketch they made of their girlfriend. And I say, so the next time I see you at this con next year or at some other con, bring me some damn comics. If you want to be doing this, there's nothing stopping you. There's no budget in comics. Get yourself a piece of paper or an iPad or whatever you may have. Get a $30 knockoff iPad and start drawing on it. And it's a good test. There are people who will come up. I give that advice to them, and 4 years later, I'm still seeing the same kind of half-finished sketches in their book. And I have to confess, at that point, I might lose little interest because, at some point, if you want to do the job, you got to start doing the job.
Yeah.
And then one other little bit of advice, and this is not something I say to a lot of people directly at the show, but it makes a big difference. There is a way to accept feedback on your portfolio, and there are a lot of ways not to. The not tos include being defensive or apologetic, or making excuses, or just this whole attitude of backing off, like, whoa, don't attack me. I was good at doing that. I was not the most talented guy in my high school. I was not the most talented guy in my classes at KU, but I was good at certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was that I was good at accepting feedback and putting that into the work. That means going to lay your portfolio down in front of somebody who knows what they're doing and accepting feedback, making notes, saying thank you very much. Don't explain, don't defend, Go home, absorb what they said, and try to integrate that into your work in whatever little way. Even an artist that you maybe don't respect very much probably knows something that you don't know.
Mhm.
So be willing to accept that into your little universe and find a way to make your own work better using that feedback and move forward. It doesn't do you or the person behind the table any good to present the work and then just start getting defensive about it. It's pointless.
Have you ever been in a position, let me reverse positions for you, where you've been seeking advice and you found yourself approaching somebody with maybe a little bit of trepidation, like, I guess I'm actually going to show them this. Has there ever been a story that you've had with that?
Yeah. Well, we learned earlier, I tend to not think that everything is going to go 100% perfect all the time. So when I went to San Diego some 15, 16 years ago to pitch my first graphic novel,
Mhm.
and people in the business only knew me as an inker, and I was showing up with a little presentation for this Union Station graphic novel I wanted to do. And I walked around San Diego and I handed it to maybe 8, 10 people, publishers I thought might be interested. And the day after I did that, I went to the bar and I became convinced that they were all going to go home and open my portfolio thing and laugh at me and that I would never get published and I'd have to publish it myself. And that was okay. I'd manage. It turns out 2 of the publishers I wanted most actually wanted to publish the book. I was able to end up exactly where I wanted with it. And my wife laughs at me. I go through those things all the time. I go out to the kitchen after a hard day's writing and go, oh, it's too bad. This project is no good. Again, people are going to laugh at me. And she's like, do you remember when you said that about Comicon Kansas? I said, yeah. You're pretty proud of that, but yeah, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, that's my struggle. But, one of my mottos in life is I don't like being so hard on myself, but I don't know any other way to not suck. That being hard on myself is what drives me every day to try to be better, so I envy people who can do it from a more positive point of view. It's just not really my mindset.
You don't experience very much disappointment then.
That's true.
Okay, I didn't expect this. If you're always expecting things to go great, you're going to get a lot of disappointment because stuff doesn't go great that much.
You expect very little, and all the positive things that happen later are a nice bonus.
Right. Now, I do have to admit my aim has shifted a bit. Like my floor now is that I'm able to keep the lights on doing art. So that's, I mean, if you told me that 30 years ago, I mean, damn, that's all right. But yeah, the extra stuff, the gravy, I tend not to put too much stock in usually.
So now you got your high is Netflix and your floor is Hulu, but that's no network looser than Hulu. I mean, you're not going to the
Stars called what? I don't think so. No, I shouldn't say anything about Stars. That's terrible. My wife loves Outlander.
Yeah, the people that write Outlander are doing okay, I think.
Yeah.
Well, there's a fascinating thing that's going to happening with all this, obviously, and it's not just how do they say it? These unprecedented times, or these, or whatever all the cliches are. The landscape is kind of changing for how stories can be. Can get out into the wild these days. I mean, obviously, there's the self-publishing route, which a lot of people explore to great success. But now we're starting to see larger and larger scale productions kind of happen. And it's interesting. I mean, have you experienced any of that sort of stuff? You talked about maybe fielding a few phone calls, some pitches, and things like that. And I know probably stuff is very early in early conversations, but some unusual players are getting into this sort of storytelling game these days in these streaming services.
Yeah, it's true. There are a lot more landing spots than there once were. And yeah, the producers that I work with will tell me they had a meeting with some guy and I'm like, who, what now? Like, not only have I not heard of them, I don't even know how to, I wouldn't know what device to use to stream it or whatever. And a year later you go, oh yeah, I remember hearing about that. We're lucky. Comics are a very affordable way for people like that to explore different kinds of intellectual properties. The money you have to throw at a comic book creator to option one of their ideas is pretty insignificant when compared to the money you would have to spend on a top-notch screenwriter.
Mm-hmm.
So it can work well for both sides, if you're working in small press comics, like, Oni Press, there's very little money involved in that. You can maybe keep your lights on. But if Hollywood comes calling, you can suddenly afford to keep your lights on for a couple years and maybe develop more product because you're not chasing dollars as hard.
Yeah.
If you're a producer, it's a lot easier to throw, a relatively small amount of money at a comic guy and take in that idea than it is to go hire the hottest screenwriter in town and get something going that way.
Yeah, the models have to change to a certain extent by necessity. But it's really interesting. Yeah, when you look at all the wealth of choices that are out there, Disney Plus, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, all these streaming services, and all of them, Apple even getting into some original content. You start to wonder if at some point that will the well run dry of good stuff that's out there. But it's really awesome.
You made the thing for Netflix. Did they try and get you to? Do they want first shot at your next thing, or are you just a free roaming animal to do whatever you want?
The second thing, I haven't had a network reach out directly yet. So I'm still in that position where I need to come up with an idea. And then I think Extraction, if there were a room to go to physically right now, I think that would get me into any room I'm interested in. But I'm still at the stage where I need to be coming up with a killer idea and then go into the room with that idea.
Your idea, does Netflix get first dibs?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I'd be happy. Again, I wasn't involved in that production, so me saying I'd be happy to work with them again is silly in a way. I was kind of involved through a side door, Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't. That would be a perfectly legit place to take a meeting. I'm not picky about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's take a quick pause here as we make a little bit of a transition because I do want to talk a little bit about what's next, because there's some kind of interesting rumors flying around about Extraction that you can absolutely just add fuel to the fire to. It'll be a lot of fun. We could just make stuff up too, Andy, maybe even. But let's talk about that here in a second. Real quick, we're just feature some of our crafters that come to Planet Comicon Kansas City every year. Some really neat folks here. One of the things I really like, Chris, about the stuff that you bring in is that it's not just comic book retailers. It's not just memorabilia. You always bring in some really interesting and creative folks. And some of these, I think, are some really good examples of just homemade goods and things that are, there within the geek community that we all love to see. And I need to get myself some Tony Stark Iron Man fingerless gloves, I think, very soon.
We have quite the craft rally, and when Planet starts rolling again, you might keep that in mind, fans out there, because it's a great place to just roam and look at all the creativity among all these crafters. So we have a large artist alley, so and the craft rally is part of that.
And again,
like 300 plus tables of people you can wander and see all the creativity, see the prints, the posters, the books, and Andy will be one of the tables hiding in there somewhere. So.
There you go. You just got to look for the guy in the hat.
True.
Andy will probably have some of these available at some point.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I'm going to expand that line. My goal, I've been running a little behind on everything, but my goal is to do a series of prints for other characters in the film. So I'll have a little set, I hope.
That would be great. Yeah, that'd be nice. This was provided to me by Andy when I purchased the Ciudad book through him for a couple of weeks ago.
Nice.
So thank you, Andy. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for buying it. And you bought the Scarlet Witch as well, right?
I did. That's right here. So yeah, I got a Scarlet Witch sketch
by Megan Levins and I. Yeah.
Yes.
Megan and I have been trying to post drawings every week that she pencils and I.
Megan did the pencils and you inked. Is that accurate?
Right.
Okay. There we go.
Nice.
So.
Is Ciudad available in print again that we can?
No, it's a little frustrating and it's kind of out of my control. There are 3 entities involved: Oni Press and the Hollywood branch of Oni Press and the Russos, and I'm like the lowest. I only own a little bit of that product, so
I
don't know.
I mean,
yeah. So yeah, it would be lovely to be selling copies right now, but it's
So do you have a piece of the character though? So if they create another film, you still have a piece of the character?
Yeah. So John mentioned there are sequel stories appearing online. I think Joe Russo has been mentioned that he's working on a screenplay, and maybe Chris would be interested, and so on.
Yeah, I'm looking at the quote here. It says, as the Chris Hemsworth action film Extraction continues on pace to become Netflix's most watched feature film ever. Most watched feature film ever.
So my producer, I shouldn't even say this. So yeah, I'll say it. I hear crazy things tonight, and my producer said, "Dude, I could get you in any room you want. You co-created maybe the most viewed movie in the world."
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, most watched feature film ever. Right. The film's writer, Joe Russo, has closed a deal to write another installment of the high-action film. Agbo, the company run by Russo's brother Anthony, are putting the pieces together. Optimistic that Sam Hargrave returns as director. Chris Hemsworth will reprise his role, although those deals won't be made by Netflix until the script is ready.
Right. So that's more or less what I've heard from people in the know. Mm-hmm. I think it's been very successful, and I think most of the people involved would like to do another. And I can't comment too much. I don't think I would be, I wasn't involved in the production of this film. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I would be involved in the production of a sequel. I can just say that if they make another one, I'd be happy. So, yeah, I hope that happens.
Kate says she wants all the tea. She wants all the tea, Andy.
All the tea.
You got to drop everything you know about what's going on. That's pretty cool, though. I mean, it's that's some fun credits to throw on your resume, though.
Yeah.
Watched feature film ever on Netflix.
Yeah, so and if Tyler Rake becomes a tent pole, that's swell. Let's keep him around.
There you go. Soon those rooms will open up again, Andy. And when they open up, you'll be in there. And then that's a few trips to LA in your future, I suspect.
But for now, like I told I've never written a screenplay, and so that's next on my list. And maybe the timing is right. I got a few months here, maybe to get to work on one, and by the time I'm done with it, maybe people will be seeing each other face to face in some capacity.
How's that going to be different? How is that different for you in terms of your process or your approach if you're looking at something that you're going to be writing for the screen versus writing for a graphic novel?
I always describe my scripts to people who are not familiar with the comic book script as half screenplay and half letter to the artist. That script is like a screenplay, just a tool to produce the work that people will eventually see. So not too different. There are some structural things about film that are kind of taken as a given that I have never concerned myself with very much. It depends on how much you believe in Robert McKee as to how tightly you want to adhere to those. Robert McKee is like the big screenwriting guru guy. Halfway point flip and the 2/3 and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how seriously I have to take that. I think more than anything, what I need to watch as a creator is my tendency to focus on something I think is neat, but maybe won't be the most commercial idea. But you never know. I mean, it's a balancing act between passion project and what does the marketplace feel like right now. When it was time to write my first graphic novel, I had thought about doing one about Truman Capote. And I thought, that's silly. Nobody's going to want to read that. And so I wrote Union Station first. And then I made the Capote book. And it turns out that there were 2 Hollywood films made about Capote's time in Kansas. So if I'd trusted my judgment and written that one first, that might have been a good thing. It's hard to guess. I will say my producer gave me some advice the other day. He said, just stay in your wheelhouse. There is a kind of story that people will associate with you now. Mm-hmm. And I said, it's okay. I liked damaged guys doing violence is kind of my thing. So that tends to be my brand, and I can definitely write more of that.
Is there anything that you have, that you're dying to, a character or something like that you feel like is now that you've gone through this process, and granted it's taken a while, that you can look at your work, differently and say, I think this would be the next. This could be a next thing. This could be something, that could take a leap into a different medium.
As far as Hollywood, I think Union Station would be a great movie or miniseries, and I would love for that to happen for myself. I think it would also be neat for Kansas City because it's a real important part of our history that even a lot of locals don't know much about. That's part of why I wrote the book, because I grew up here and all I knew is that somebody got shot there and I didn't really know why or what happened. And that already has a screenplay that I did not write, that somebody wrote in Hollywood that I worked with. And it made the Hollywood Blacklist once, like a long time ago, which is like the best unproduced scripts in town.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, I think that's the closest, and that would be my favorite thing to make that transition next. And I don't know how realistic that is, but I do think period pieces they're not as intimidating to production companies as they once were, because digital effects have made it such that you don't necessarily have to remake a downtown city block as a period block anymore. You can do that stuff in a very convincing, real way with computers. And there are so many more homes for that kind of historical stuff right now. So,
well, I know the Kansas City Film Commission's been trying for years and to varying levels of success to bring more production to Kansas City. And it's one of those iconic buildings here. To be used as a backdrop, it just seems almost like it's just like camera ready. Dustin, who's behind the controls with us and helping us out with some comments and stuff like that, I know that's one of his favorite subjects is to get down there and shoot Union Station.
It's a hell of a thing, and especially for guys like our age, at least three of us here, who grew up when that building was decrepit and leaked.
I remember, yeah.
To see it as glorious as it is now is really special.
Yeah. I think it'd be fascinating to see Kansas City put on a map like that. It's been a little while since I think we've had a major film production here that I can remember that really, probably not since Kansas City, probably not since Altman. Yeah. That we really had that as a backdrop. So I think that'd be a really cool way to celebrate the city and its history. So I think you got a lot of people who would probably be pulling in that same direction as you, Andy, to see that come to life.
Maybe
Andy, I was wanting to go a little different direction here, and you talked a little bit earlier about the film industry finding comic book properties to be less expensive to develop. There's constant talk about, can comics survive? Can comics survive the pandemic, and are sales dropping too much, or can you afford to do this? What are your thoughts on comics and production? Do you feel that Hollywood can keep comics alive by wanting that source of new ideas, basically? The problem, one, I know guys old enough and been around this business long enough that I know that almost since the birth of our art form, people have been saying, oh, comics are dead. So I try not to take those things too seriously. Now, this is unprecedented, what we're going through now, and it preys on one of the big flaws about our business model, which is how do we get our product to the people? And unfortunately, if comic book stores can't survive this thing, that puts a big strain on the whole system. Mm-hmm. Now, it's true that Warner Brothers and Marvel have some incentive to keep these products flowing as a relatively affordable form of marketing and as a generator of new intellectual properties. But that, the business with only those two companies isn't a very rosy thing to think about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a troublesome time, and I'm glad William is getting rolling again. I did my puny little part as part of that fundraiser. I'm doing a Hulk painting for a guy who actually lives in Kansas City as part of the auctions that went on Twitter. But I know all of us in the business are very concerned that stores are going to be having a really difficult time, and we're trying to do what we can to help them out.
I think it's good people are doing that. I do think it was a little bit weird. Well, because you read comic book news, how people concerned like, is this going to kill comics? This is like the end of comics. How will comics survive? Like the pandemic wasn't affecting and destroying tons of businesses.
Right.
It wasn't really affecting comics any worse than restaurants or bars or all kinds of businesses. It's nothing like this has happened before. It's bad.
And I think about my two big the things that really give me joy out in the world, aside from my family and all that, are checking into a clean hotel room and going to a bar for the first time. And I can't, not only I can't do those things, I'm worried about all those bars that I visited, and it's a scary time for everybody who has a small business.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to start wrapping some things up. But first, we do want to take, on that note, give a little bit of recognition to some of our comic retailers that come to Planet Comic-Con on a regular basis. Some folks that are with us year after year, and some good friends of the con. Chops Comics, Back in Time, Dave and Adams, and these are more than just comic books too. These are kind of gathering places and folks that have who kind of keep a lot of the traditions and stories of what it means to be a collector alive at these cons. I mean, I can't even think, we were talking about this last time, William, last week, how many collections are probably launched, at places like Planet Comic-Con and places like Elite. Kind of missed that, man.
Comic Book Day or any of these things where people get their first taste, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Those are some great retailers there. Chops Comics is out in Lawrence. They're one of the better stores in Lawrence.
Yeah.
Dave and Adams, they have some amazing books. I was at LA Comic-Con, 2 years ago, back when you go to those things, and a collection of Amazing Spider-Man, 2 through 20, CGC Signature Series signed by Stan Lee, were being offered around, and I saw the guy carrying them around, and Dave and Adams got them. So I was very jealous at the time. I really wanted that run of.
I was going to say, you're 15. Not bitter.
Oh yeah.
Wow. You don't know, Chris. Chris will have literally 5 or 10 million comics and $1 million worth of comics. He'll tell you about a collection he missed out on 14 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Supergirl 7. It's worth $80.
Right.
I missed out on 18 books at LA Comic-Con 3 years ago. Darn it. So,
and William,
they were good ones.
William, you have some. You flashed some comics earlier at me that Chris might be interested in.
Just for Chris. Oh, my son likes
Millie
the model.
There you go, Millie the models. There you go.
It can't be an episode of talking comics without.
Millie number 46, especially priced for Chris, $250.
Ooh.
That is not my price range for Millie the models. My price range is $20, William. So I found this searching through a drawer in my house. It was literally in a drawer. It wasn't in a comic box. It was in a drawer. What's the significance of this? Is Dan DiCarlo signed this. If you look down there, Dan DiCarlo, he's the artist. He signed this for me at Planet Comic-Con, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And Dan was an amazing guy who really came out with a lot of the best kind of good girl stuff of the 1950s. So
what does it say across the top of that?
You know what it says. I'm not going to.
52 gay pages.
Unfortunately, the comic is 86 pages, so only 52 in there.
I thought Chris would have counted it, but
every once in a while I take some pages out and have to write a new number up there. So
there's 34 straight pages, 52 gay pages.
And I got this on eBay this week, so everybody knows I'm still shopping. I'm helping the economy go. Nice. This is another 1950s Millie.
There it is.
This was a bargain. I got it with 10 other comics for $40.
There you go.
Total. And
Dustin says your Funko Pop, Chris, is going to have a Millie outfit. There's going to be a variant of your Funko. So
Millie's awesome. I'm going to start showing you some of the interior fashion pages one of these days. All of them have paper doll pages, fashion pages.
Where people send in designs for the outfits. I think that's an incredibly great idea.
There you go.
maybe make some. Yeah, we can turn this into a contest. I think it could happen.
That's what they did. Fans would send in their ideas on hairdos.
There you go. Andy, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really cool to kind of get more of the story, behind the story, and
yes,
and also, I mean, just to participate and celebrate your success with you. So
thank you so much. Really good talking to you guys.
Yeah,
Andy, I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
No problem.
You've been with us a long time. Gosh, I've known you more than 20, 25 years now.
Yeah.
So 25 years roughly. I met you at the old club show originally, I think.
Right.
Up at the down at the Reardon Center in downtown KCK.
God bless them. I met a lot of amazing people at those shows.
Yeah.
Now we all have a mission, though. Our new mission is Union Station, the movie.
Yes.
Whenever anyone asks you for any rumor you've heard, the new rumor we have all heard, Union Station, the movie.
Good.
we're going to start.
Send your letters demanding that to Hollywood, America. It should get there.
Hollywood, rumors go around that we've heard it's being made. Someone's going to be like, "I better make this." I've heard these.
Yeah, right.
Sadly, the only one of the four of us that has any influence in Hollywood is Andy. So
that's right.
It's hard to do its own horn, though. We can spread rumors.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
That's all we got.
And lies, but that's neither here nor there. Okay.
Yeah.
The internet is supposed to be made of lies.
So real quick around the horn, Chris, next week it'll be Tuesday night starting at 7:00 because for some reason William has a story he needs to be at on Wednesdays.
New book day.
There you go. But we're gonna get some sneak previews, some sneak peeks at things that are coming out.
Yep, we'll get a preview of the next day's new books.
Awesome. Awesome.
I'll bring in a sampler so everyone gets to see what they can buy the next day.
Again, these fine folks. The one, the only, the Elite Comics. Chris, we've got some interesting things that are going to be happening. We got a couple of live streams that are going to be happening here in the next few days, weeks. We've got more. Next week is a full slate, starting on Sunday with our cosplay crafter live stream.
Valkyrie Britannia. Yes, another local cosplayer and creator.
Yeah. So Jelly Bean, our host from US Toy Magic and Costume Shop, will be hosting on Sunday and having that conversation. I think there's going to be some really interesting conversations, not only just around cosplay in general, but also some techniques and crafting techniques. So I think that's gonna be a lot of fun. And then on Tuesday next week, we'll have Talking Comics. So we'll be back here, just a slightly different day, but same time. And then Thursday of next week, we got a really big one here.
Yes, I get the opportunity to talk with Elizabeth Maxwell and Kara Eberly of Ruby, and we'll talk about their careers and experiences. So really looking forward to that. I met them through Planet Comicon, having them guest at Planet, and I've gotten to know them pretty well, and they are amazing women.
And we will have a special MC. Is that correct?
Yes, we'll have Kid Cadet joining us to help with our discussion and lead us through a chat with Kara and Elizabeth.
Awesome. So this is the time where we thank all of our sponsors of Planet Comicon Kansas City who have been with us for a good chunk of this year and who are taking this, traveling this journey with us and live streaming as well. Our friends with Nebraska Furniture Mart, by the way, check out our Facebook page on Thursdays at 2:00. They've been doing Superhero Story Hour. These are children's books read by some of your favorite local cosplayers. We've had some really fun ones so far. And I believe this Thursday is going to be Elite Supergirl reading I Am a Unicorn. So thank you, Nebraska Furniture Mart, Friends of Boulevard Brewing, the U.S. Army, KCWE, Geico, UMB Bank, Xfinity, who is probably putting in overtime these days, 5 Hour Energy, who's probably helping them put in the overtime, Friends of T-Mobile, Kansas City Mavericks, Kansas City Live, and the state of Oklahoma Tourism Board. My thanks, Chris, to Jelly Bean, who will be with you on Sunday, to Dustin Evans, the man behind the controls today. My name is John Kreisbergs. Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you, William. We'll see you at the
boys.
shop.
Thank you, folks.
Chris, thank you so much.
Sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.